May 21st, 1924, just after midnight, near the town of Lone Pine, California, several dozen Owens Valley residents gather in darkness. They carry 500 pounds of dynamite, and they are about to bomb the Los Angeles Aqueduct. The explosion rips through the concrete structure. Water gushes out. The blast marks the opening salvo in what newspapers called California's Little Civil War. The California Water Wars had begun. But the conflict didn't start in 1924. It started 20 years earlier, with a lie. In 1904, Los Angeles was running out of water. The city had grown from 11,000 people in 1880 to over 200,000 by 1900. The Los Angeles River couldn't support more growth. City leaders needed a new source. They found it in the Owens Valley, 233 miles northeast. The Owens River flowed down from the Sierra Nevada mountains. It fed Owens Lake, and it sustained a thriving agricultural community of 7,000 residents, ranchers, farmers. The valley was called the Switzerland of California, lush, green, prosperous. Los Angeles wanted that water, all of it. But the city faced a problem. Owens Valley residents wouldn't sell their land and water rights. So Los Angeles lied. Fred Eaton, former Los Angeles mayor, and William Mulholland, head of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, traveled to Owens Valley. They told residents Los Angeles only needed surplus water, water the valley wasn't using. They promised the valley could keep its irrigation, keep its farms, keep its way of life. The residents believed them, and that was their first mistake. Between 1905 and 1913, Los Angeles built the longest aqueduct in the world at the time. 233 miles of concrete channels, tunnels, and siphons. It cost $23 million. At least 43 workers died during construction. And when it opened on November 5, 1913, water began flowing to Los Angeles. 300 million gallons per day. Not surplus water, all the water. Within a decade, Owens Lake had dried completely. 12 miles long, 8 miles wide. Gone. Replaced by 110 square miles of toxic alkali dust. The valley's farms failed, its economy collapsed, and its residents realized they had been deceived. This is the story of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, the greatest water theft in American history, and the environmental catastrophe that continues 112 years later. In the late 1800s, Owens Valley was an unlikely paradise. Situated in the rain shadow of the Sierra Nevada mountains, it received little rainfall. But it didn't need rain. The Owens River, fed by snowmelt from the mountains, flowed year-round through the valley. It created wetlands, meadows, grasslands. The Paiute people had lived there for thousands of years, developing irrigation systems to channel water from the river. white settlers arrived in the 1860s, displacing the Paiute through violence and deceit. They established ranches and farms. By 1900, Owens Valley had a population of about 7,000. Towns like Bishop, Independence, and Lone Pine thrived. The valley exported beef, wool, and crops. It was prosperous, self-sufficient, and unaware of what was coming. Meanwhile, 250 miles southwest, Los Angeles faced a crisis. The city had grown explosively after the railroad arrived in 1876, but it was located in a semi-arid region. The Los Angeles River, its primary water source, couldn't support continued growth. By the early 1900s, city leaders knew they needed more water, or Los Angeles would stop growing. That was unacceptable. Fred Eaton had been mayor of Los Angeles in the 1890s. After leaving office, he became a land speculator. In 1904, he traveled to Owens Valley on a hunting trip. He saw the Owens River, and he had an idea. What if Los Angeles could divert that water, build an aqueduct? The valley didn't need all that water, he thought. Los Angeles did. Eaton and Mulholland shared his idea with William Mulholland, superintendent of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Mulholland was a self-taught engineer. He had arrived in Los Angeles as a teenage laborer and worked his way up through the water department. He was brilliant, ambitious, and ruthless. He loved Eaton's idea. But there was a problem. The United States Bureau of Reclamation was already planning an irrigation project for Owens Valley. The Reclamation Service wanted to build dams and canals to expand agriculture in the valley. If that project went forward, Los Angeles couldn't take the water. Eaton and Mulholland needed to stop it. So they conspired with Joseph Lippincott, the Reclamation Service engineer overseeing the Owens Valley project. Lippincott was also a consultant for Los Angeles. He had a conflict of interest, and he sided with the city. Lippincott secretly shared Reclamation Service maps and data with Los Angeles. He helped Eaton identify which land and water rights to buy, and he quietly sabotaged the federal irrigation project. When the Reclamation Service withdrew from Owens Valley in 1905, residents were confused. They didn't know their own government had betrayed them. With the federal project dead, Eaton and Mulholland moved fast. They began buying land and water rights in Owens Valley. But they didn't use their own names. They used intermediaries, shell companies, false identities. They told sellers the land was for cattle ranching, for private irrigation projects, never for Los Angeles Aqueduct. Farmers and ranchers sold willingly. They had no reason to suspect. By 1905, Los Angeles controlled enough water rights to proceed. And then the truth came out. On July 29, 1905, the Los Angeles Times ran a front-page story. Los Angeles would build an aqueduct to the Owens River. The city would take the valley's water. The story shocked Owens Valley residents. They felt betrayed, deceived. Eaton and his son were in the town of Bishop when the news broke. An angry mob gathered around them in the street. Eaton was told he would never take the water out of the valley, that if he came back, he would be drowned in the river. He hurriedly packed and fled. But the damage was done. Los Angeles had the water rights, and it had political power. In 1907, the city secured federal approval to build the aqueduct through public land. President Theodore Roosevelt supported the project. He believed Los Angeles's growth was more important than Owens Valley's agriculture. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, he reasoned. Construction began in 1908. The Los Angeles Aqueduct was an engineering marvel. 233 miles long, it crossed deserts, mountains, canyons. It included 142 tunnels totaling 53 miles, 12 inverted siphons to carry water across valleys, and the world's largest concrete conduit at the time. At its peak, 5,000 workers labored on the project. They used steam shovels, dynamite, mules, and brute force. Working conditions were brutal. Summer temperatures in the Mojave Desert exceeded 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Accidents were common: blasting injuries, cave-ins, falls, heat exhaustion. At least 43 workers died during construction, though the true number may be higher. Many deaths went unrecorded. Mark Watterson and his brother Wilfred owned the Inyo County Bank in Bishop. They also published the local newspaper. They watched Los Angeles buy up valley land and water rights, and they grew increasingly alarmed. By 1913, they realized the truth. Los Angeles wasn't just taking surplus water, it was taking everything. The valley's future was being drained away. But construction was nearly complete, and there was nothing they could do. Yet. On November 5, 1913, the aqueduct officially opened. 40,000 people gathered at the San Fernando Valley terminus to watch water arrive from Owens Valley. Mulholland gave a speech. He said, "There it is. Take it." Los Angeles celebrated. But in Owens Valley, there was only silence and growing anger. At first, the impact was gradual. The aqueduct diverted water from the Owens River, but some water still flowed to Owens Lake. Farms still had irrigation. The valley still functioned. But Los Angeles kept growing, and it needed more water. By the early 1920s, the city was diverting almost all the river's flow. Owens Lake began shrinking fast. By 1924, it was gone, completely dry. What remained was 110 square miles of exposed lake bed, alkali salt, toxic dust. When wind blew across the dry lake bed, it created massive dust storms. The dust contained arsenic, cadmium, and other hazardous materials. It caused respiratory illnesses, eye irritation, skin problems, and it spread for miles. Owens Valley residents called it the worst air quality in the United States. They weren't wrong. The valley's economy collapsed. Farms failed without adequate water. Ranches dried up. Property values plummeted. Businesses closed. The population began declining. Residents felt helpless. They had tried legal challenges. All failed. Los Angeles had better lawyers, more money, more political influence. So, in May 1924, some residents decided to fight back with dynamite. Early Sunday morning, May 21, 1924, several dozen Owens Valley residents gathered near Lone Pine. They brought 500 pounds of dynamite. They selected a vulnerable section of the aqueduct, and they blew it up. Water gushed out onto the desert floor. The explosion was heard for miles. Los Angeles was furious, but Owens Valley residents cheered. Finally, they had struck back. And they weren't done. Over the next 7 years, between 1924 and 1931, residents bombed the aqueduct at least 11 separate times. Sometimes they used dynamite. Other times they opened gates, drained water back into the Owens River. The most dramatic incident happened on November 16, 1924. Led by banker Mark Watterson and others, a group of armed residents seized the Alabama Gates spillway. They forcefully removed the 2 watchmen on duty. Then they opened the floodgates. Water poured out of the aqueduct and back into the valley. They laid barbed wire at the entrance, as if preparing for a siege, and they held the gates for 4 days. Newspapers called it an act of rebellion. The Los Angeles Water Board called it terrorism. But many Californians sympathized with the valley residents. Even some Los Angeles newspapers admitted the city had treated Owens Valley unfairly. The standoff at Alabama Gates ended peacefully. No one was arrested, no one was charged, because public opinion sided with the valley. For a moment, it seemed like the resistance might work. But Los Angeles responded with overwhelming force. Not military force, financial force. The city began buying up even more valley land, aggressively. If residents wouldn't sell, Los Angeles cut off their water access, starved them out. By the end of 1926, Los Angeles controlled 90% of Owens Valley's land and water rights. The valley was defeated, but the Watterson brothers refused to give up. They used their bank to finance resistance efforts. They published editorials condemning Los Angeles, and they continued organizing attacks on the aqueduct. In 1927, the Wattersons made a fatal mistake. To fund the resistance, they had been embezzling money from their own bank, misappropriating deposits. When regulators discovered the fraud, the bank collapsed. Depositors lost everything. The Watterson brothers were arrested, tried, and convicted. At their sentencing, the district attorney broke down in tears. The judge wept, the jury wept, even the defendants wept. The Wattersons were sentenced to 10 years in San Quentin prison. They were the only people ever criminally prosecuted for the water wars, not for bombing the aqueduct, for bank fraud. The irony was bitter. Los Angeles had stolen an entire valley's water and faced no consequences.
The Wattersons tried to fight back and lost everything. Harry Glasscock, editor of the Owens Valley Herald, had warned this would happen. In 1924, he wrote that the aqueduct would run red with human blood before the trouble was settled. He was almost right. No one died in the water wars, but the valley did. Its economy, its population, its future, all dead. And Los Angeles won.
By 1931, the California water wars were over. Los Angeles controlled the valley. The aqueduct flowed uninterrupted, 300 million gallons per day, and Los Angeles kept growing. By 1940, the city's population exceeded 1.5 million. It became the 5th largest city in the United States. None of that growth would have been possible without Owens Valley water. The city knew it, but it never acknowledged the cost. Owens Valley's population declined from 7,000 in 1900 to just a few thousand by 1940. Towns like Keeler, once thriving, became ghost towns. Independence and Lone Pine survived, but shrank. Bishop remained the valley's largest town, but its economy never recovered. The valley that had been called the Switzerland of California was now a desert, dry, dusty, forgotten. Owens Lake became an environmental disaster. 110 square miles of toxic dust, the worst source of particulate air pollution in the United States. For decades, nothing was done. Los Angeles didn't care. The valley residents had no power. But in the 1990s, environmental regulations finally forced action. The Clean Air Act required Los Angeles to mitigate the dust. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power began spending tens of millions of dollars annually on dust control measures: shallow flooding, vegetation planting, gravel coverage. By 2025, the department had spent over $2.5 billion, and the problem still isn't solved. The dust storms continue. The air quality remains among the worst in the nation. 112 years after the aqueduct opened, Owens Lake is still a toxic wasteland. The Los Angeles Aqueduct transformed Southern California. It made Los Angeles possible. Without that water, the city would have stopped growing in the 1920s. There would be no Hollywood, no sprawling suburbs, no car culture, no modern Los Angeles. The aqueduct was essential to everything that followed. But it came at a cost paid entirely by Owens Valley. The story inspired the 1974 film Chinatown. The movie changed details, but captured the essence. Powerful interests stealing water. Ordinary people crushed. Corruption going unpunished. The film won an Academy Award. It made the story famous, but it didn't change anything. Owens Valley remained forgotten, and Los Angeles kept taking water. William Mulholland became a hero in Los Angeles. Streets were named after him, schools, monuments. He brought water to the desert, they said. He built a city. But in Owens Valley, he was a villain, the man who destroyed their home. And his legacy became even darker in 1928. The St. Francis Dam, another Mulholland project, collapsed. It killed over 400 people. Mulholland took full responsibility. He said, "If there was an error in human judgment, I was the human." He resigned in disgrace and died 10 years later, haunted by his failures. His dual legacy remains: hero to Los Angeles, destroyer to everyone else. The legal battles never truly ended. Owens Valley sued Los Angeles multiple times over the decades. In 1997, the city finally agreed to restore some environmental flows to the lower Owens River. In 2006, more agreements followed. Los Angeles committed to reducing dust pollution at Owens Lake, to restoring wetlands, to compensating the valley for a century of damage. But the restoration is incomplete. The ecosystem will never fully recover, and the valley's economy is still broken. Tourism replaced agriculture, but it's not the same. The Switzerland of California is gone forever. The story raises uncomfortable questions. When is it acceptable to sacrifice one community for another? Who decides, and who pays the cost? Los Angeles argued that its growth benefited more people than Owens Valley's preservation. Utilitarian logic, the greatest good for the greatest number. But does that make it right? Does population size determine moral priority? And what responsibility does Los Angeles have for the destruction it caused? These questions don't have easy answers, but they matter, because the same logic is applied today. Cities take water from rural areas. Wealthy regions exploit poorer ones. Growth is prioritized over sustainability, and communities are destroyed in the name of progress. The Los Angeles Aqueduct wasn't unique. It was just the most famous example.
The Los Angeles Aqueduct killed a valley. Owens Lake dried up. 7,000 residents were driven out. An entire regional economy collapsed. And 112 years later, the environmental damage continues. Toxic dust storms, worst air quality in America, $2.5 billion spent on mitigation and still not fixed. All so Los Angeles could grow. The city got everything it wanted, and Owens Valley got nothing but dust. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Los Angeles doesn't regret it. The city celebrates Mulholland. The aqueduct is considered an engineering triumph, a symbol of ambition and determination. The destruction of Owens Valley is a footnote, an acceptable cost. And that's the real legacy. Not just what happened, but how we remember it, or don't. If you want to uncover more stories of American infrastructure hiding dark secrets, subscribe to Hidden America. Next time, we'll explore the St. Francis Dam collapse,
where William Mulholland's arrogance killed over 400 people in 1928. We'll investigate the ignored warnings, the unstable foundation, and why Mulholland took full responsibility but faced no criminal charges. Subscribe now for more hidden infrastructure stories. And remember, the Los Angeles Aqueduct taught America a lesson, but we don't always learn. Sometimes we just take the water and leave the dust behind.